What's up, everybody? Welcome to South Beach Strategy. Today, we're going to talk with a good friend of ours, Alexander Ringleb, owner of Burgermeister,
yes, right? And the Office Delray.
And the Office Delray. So we're going to talk about all the stuff you got going on.
Yes.
Entrepreneurship, policies, hospitality, real estate. You seem to be in the know of everything that's going on in Miami, which is why we wanted to have you on. And I had told you earlier, I look at two places. Only in Dade to see where the crazies are, and then your Instagram, which is like a podcast to me,
Thank you.
Policy and entrepreneurship, so we can know we're all in the same boat here. We're all rowing the same boat, right?
That's the point of the whole.
And there's strength in numbers, so if people understand who you are, how do you know all this stuff? That's what I want to know. You must read like crazy. He reads like crazy. I know your wife is here, so she knows,
Oh, God,
He reads like crazy.
I'm more nervous about her than about you.
Well, you're not the only one. Everybody that sits in that chair, they're in the hot seat when their wives are here, so I already know. All right, trending topic number one. Is Miami becoming too expensive, more than New York, or is that a fib?
I mean, if we go by the article by Bloomberg, they go by the metro area, and here the metro area goes up to all the way Palm Beach. So the index says the federal index says we're at 114. New York was 113. But, I just like that we always take Miami and New York as apples and apples, That's the big apple, we are the orange, And a lot of people always try to compare that. And I don't agree with it because, you really need to dig into so many numbers to understand what it really is. The comparisons they made, it's not really, because you got to see that our median income is way lower than in New York, So is Miami becoming more expensive? I would say Miami is becoming too expensive for the majority of the people that lives here. And that's really the point, Before the Herald reported it, I dug into the numbers. Luckily, I get sent a lot of inside information from people in the right places. And I found very early, before the Herald reported about it, that 54% of our, or 56% of our population can make ends meet. And I didn't see that because of an article. I did my own research because I saw my own people suffering. I saw, my employees starting to suffer. I heard my barber, hey, I had to move 3 times in 3 years because they kept junking up my rent, and I can't afford it anymore. So the more my closer circle to me, I saw them suffering, the more I got interested into, that's why I started the platform. Because I said, what's going on? Because I live here since 27 years. So I've seen Miami going through September 11, I've seen Miami going through the hurricanes, I've seen the housing crash. So I've seen Miami going through all these cycles, but what I'm seeing recently is that more and more people were financially hurting, and I saw friends that were making a decent income, leaving the state, and that's when I started. And besides that too, I'm from Germany, so I have friends overseas, and mostly what they see is only in Dade, So they see mostly, hype content or only in Dade content, and they're saying, Miami's the greatest place on earth, and wow, Lamborghinis, yachts, and, penthouses. And then I told my friends, I said, listen, we are a real city with real city struggles, And so is it more expensive? It's getting too expensive for what it is right now. I think it's a transition period. We're just in the middle of it, or at the beginning even of it. We're way far from where it's going to be. But yeah, it's too expensive for the majority that lives here,
Yeah, the workforce has to be taking a hit a little bit, trying to afford the rents and also, live off the salaries that they can make in the businesses they work at, right?
Yes, and the operators that got affected in that same hype boom was, the insurance increased, the rents increased, very unrealistic to what the Miami market is today. Because at the end, all that happened during the pandemic. So there were several components. We had our mayor, Francis Suarez, do that famous tweet, "How can I help?" And that came along, and I'm sure I met him, very nice guy, came to my restaurant in Brickell, super cool guy, super nice, and but that tweet came along with a lot of consequences. And along with that, we were the only state that was basically promoting we're open. And a lot of people had this fatigue about the pandemic, and they were just tired of being locked up. So this was like one of the places on earth where everybody could breathe again, you know? And so that created a boom.
Yeah. Huge boom.
Once in a generation boom, you know?
Yeah.
That's the reality to it. And besides the generation boom, it had a lot of artificial funds. We had the PPP money, we had the SBA loans, we had the stimulus checks, flights were incredibly cheap, hotels were incredibly cheap. So we had this boom that everybody came to Florida, and particularly Miami, and that created the situation that we're in today, you know?
And are we still going on the downslope, or when do we start seeing that thing kind of start like dipping and coming back up?
So I think, you know, everything, it's like water, you know, it's going to settle at one point. But I think we are far from the downside because, you know, in reality, there is a downside because we have a K-shaped economy. The top is booming, and the bottom, in conclusion to that, is suffering tremendously right now. So until our leadership that got us into this situation doesn't address that, you know, it will continue this way. Miami is not going to stop right now. You know, all these billionaires and millionaires that have moved here, not only for fun, but bringing their businesses here, they didn't do that for a temporary tax break. You know, they did it because they believe in the city. And, you know, you've seen several articles about it, and it's going to continue. It's not going to end, you know. It's basically Miami keeps promoting itself as that, you know. So where is that going to go? It's going to continue for our population in one side to live on that luxury. On the other side, it's going to continue to have our population suffer the majority of it, you know?
You do a good explanation of, we could just do like the ABCs of this kind of, because when people see the articles, billionaires here buying this stuff, I think people understand that like, oh, Miami must be booming at all levels because all this money is coming in. I think I saw one of your posts where you kind of explained like, yes, this money comes in, but it doesn't trickle down always to the average operator who has a mom and pop shop, right?
Absolutely not. For example, take it now. Miami or Florida has always been known to have a slow season. You know, every summer we went through the same thing as an operator, as hospitality workers, and it's not only about restaurants. It's a hair salon, a nail salon, a boutique, and you name it. Everybody had this slow season. But what was added to it now is that we became oversaturated, you know, so a lot of these out of state, international concepts came to Miami. So they would all come and open up, and we have about 8,350 restaurants right now. And we have seen, again now, the same slow season. After the pandemic, every year, 23, 23, 24, 25, it started to dip more and more and more. And now in 2026, with a lot of other influences, for example, you know, there's so many components that, and that's why I look at everything, not just like, oh, this sucks, why is that, you know? For example, and I'm not political at all, you know, I don't get into left-right thing. I think that's all nonsense, you know? But now our international tourism has suffered, you know? We don't get the international tourism, and that's a fact. There's many media outlets that have reported it, that the U.S. right now is one of the only countries that's seeing a dip in tourism, you know? And that's affecting us, of course, you know, because then on top of it, we are too expensive now for the leisure tourism,
yes,
for the medium income, middle class income family that would come travel to Miami and stay here for 2 weeks, you know? I mean, look at the hotel rooms, look at the prices, so they can't afford it now. And
that probably related to the World Cup. That's probably why the World Cup, everybody's like, oh, nothing happened, right?
Yeah, everybody was hyping it up like everything else. Miami still performed the best besides all the other cities. But it was a rate event. It wasn't a people event. The tickets were crazy. The hotels, for example, everybody said, oh, my God, we did so well in hotel revenue. We balanced it out from the previous summer, not because we had the same amount of people booking hotels, the hotel rates were just so expensive that it met pretty much. It was, I think, a point up from the previous
Those
year.
people didn't even stay in Miami, probably. They probably stayed in Fort Lauderdale, close to the stadium. You know, a lot of that tourism was like soccer tourism. You know, the teams, people came together, they drinking, and they're just going to the game. They probably get on a plane and leave right after. I don't think they even stay around much. I barely saw anybody.
No, the streets, as you saw, were empty. You know, the streets were empty, and there was also a lot of city jumping. You know, the fans would follow their team. So they would stay here a couple of days. Most of them stayed around Airbnbs up in Miami Gardens, you know, and that area up there, you know. And on top of that, the fans that would come, they would go to Ocean Drive. I think they did very well. Miami Beach, I got to congratulate them.
Yeah.
They did better than the city of Miami with the Fan Fest.
Yes.
I think the city of Miami Beach put a little bit more effort than the others. But again, there also, if you see that, how poorly that was treated here, because if you look at Brazil or these other countries that hosted World Cups, that was a party for 3 months, months before, 2 months before, and stayed right after that. You know, and we didn't see that because we didn't, you know, we priced the majority out of it, you know?
Yeah. Everything was very expensive. Miami has gotten to that point. And since you said you've been around for a long time, you mentioned 9/11.
Yes.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about your background.
Yeah, please.
So people can understand, you know, what you've been through, what you've seen. So 9/11 was a huge thing. I remember that. I was working. I was like 19. I worked in a gym at that time. The next day, nobody showed up to the gym. It was done. Like, I didn't see a member for months before people came back. So that was a rough one. Then we had the downturn in like 2007, 2008.
Yeah,
right?
2008, yeah.
So I felt like
hurricanes in between.
yes, and yeah, always hurricanes is always something that we're dodging.
We've
You know,
been
everybody's
lucky.
used to that.
We've been
Yeah,
lucky. Yeah,
we're always dodging that. But Miami around that time at least was a place where like you had your local establishments that always did well. It was never a place that like Miami was like crazy. You know, it was just like the weekends did well, and the people who had an established clientele would always do good because they've been around forever. And then we just got oversaturated, and then things started to dip and stuff like that. So walk us through like. Where were you during that time, and how did you start? When did you get to Miami? Let's start it from the beginning.
So I left Germany when I was very young. I moved to Aruba. I lived in Aruba for a while. I used to live in the Dominican Republic at a very young age because I just couldn't deal with the weather in Germany. You know, it was just terrible. You know, I mean,
What part of Germany?
It's Bochum. Bochum is next to Düsseldorf. That's a city that more people know. It's very close to the Dutch border. You know, so I was very often in Holland, you know.
Nice.
And so I left about when I was 19 I left, and then I moved to the DR, stayed there, went back to Germany, said I can't deal with this. Then I moved to Aruba. Then I lived in Aruba, and then from Aruba I moved to Colombia. I lived in Cali, Colombia in 1999. And
Nice.
Yeah, it was beautiful actually, you know. And everybody always said it's so dangerous. I had no incidents.
Yes.
You know?
No, you won't.
No
you won't.
issues. No.
Yeah.
And so then final decision came. I didn't want to go back. Colombia, I said, what's next? So I always heard about Miami. And I said, I got to come to Miami. So I didn't know anybody here. I had no clue. I've never been here before. So I just jumped on a plane. I came here in the year 2000. And I arrived during Labor Day. And it was packed, you know, out of control. And I said, oh, my God, this is heaven here, you know.
You came straight to the beach, or you were in Miami?
Straight to Miami Beach. I took a bus from the airport to 41st Street. I came with $500. That was all the money I had. So I said, it's either make it or break it. So then I arrived 44th Street. The bus dropped me off. I had no clue where I was.
There was a Fontainebleau at that time there? Right?
No.
There was nothing there?
Nothing there. It was, you know, it was just 41st and Collins, and then I was at a bus station, so I got a cab, and I said to the cab driver, because I only knew Lincoln Road and Ocean Drive from these little maps that I got, you know, because there was not much internet yet, you know. So the cab, I said, I need a cheapest hotel around here. So the guy dropped me off at the Tropics Hotel, you know, on Collins Avenue, the Tropics Hotel. It was $50 a night. I checked in there. I did the mistake that I went out the first night. I spent $150.
Miami got you, boy.
Oh, my God, right. First
Miami
night.
got you the first night.
First night.
That happens a lot, so don't feel bad.
Yes.
It happens.
So, but the next day I woke up and I said, oh, my God, what did you do? You know, you spent most of your money. And then I said, all right, I need to get a job, you know. So I walked down Ocean Drive, and I didn't feel it, you know. It was too touristy for me. So the same day, in the morning, I went to Ocean Drive. Afternoon, I went to Lincoln Road. So I stopped on Lincoln Road, where the old Sony building is. I got a job at a restaurant called Carnevale. So I started there. Of course, I was illegal.
Brazilian restaurant?
No, Italian.
Italian.
It was from the same guys that had Carpaccio in Bal Harbor.
Okay, nice.
So I started there and started off.
So
as
they've been around
waiter.
for a while, so they were good in the game. Good place to start learning, right?
Carnevale was good, yeah. It was just one of the owners, two of the owners, Piero and Manuele. And they gave me the opportunity. I met an Argentinian guy, and we started talking about soccer. And he's like, so what do you do here? I said, I'm just here. It's my third day in Miami. And he's like, third day? It's like, where are you staying? I said, at the motel down the street, you know? And he said, well, you know, if you want, we have a studio. It's at 1145 Euclid Avenue. And it's 5 guys of us. We live in the studio. And it was 3 Argentinian, 2 Brazilians. And they said, we have a spot there you can lay down and sleep, you know?
Oh, man, that's great.
So the rent was $500. So everybody had to pay, I think with electricity, it was $100 a month.
The good old days. We're long from there, right?
So I had a lot of money to blow, you know, and we had a lot of fun, you know. It was, I mean, the place was a shithole, you know. It was full of roaches and slept on the floor in the kitchen and one bathroom. You can just imagine, you know.
Yeah.
So
and the restaurant was nice?
The restaurant Carnevale was nice. Lincoln Road was hopping. It was popping. It was busy.
So that's why we have the hospitality background, right? That's where you
Yes.
start. That's where you got your grassroots.
That's
so you
where it
were
started.
you learned from the bottom up.
I went from the bottom up, and then so I started.
This is always very important. We like to lay down because people think that you just showed up here from Germany, a millionaire, and you just opened a Burgermeister. I want them to understand you got to start somewhere. A lot of people start somewhere. You know, when you don't know anything, you have to go somewhere, learn, start, and grow. It's okay. You can't walk in to be the CEO of every place you go. You know,
I wish, but
doesn't work that way. Okay, so we're working from the ground up.
Yeah, from the ground up, and I was very serious about it because I wanted to stay, live here, and become somebody. So, I mean, the dangerous part is what I fell into right away the first months. You know, you got the party, you know, you have the girls, you have money available, you know.
Miami.
And everything was cheap, you know, not cheap, but it was reasonable, you know. I mean, you could go into a club for $20 with general admission, easy, you know, and it
They didn't even have bottle service back then.
No, you didn't. No, yeah. And the good thing was, since it was so concentrated on South Beach, everybody knew each other. You know, if you were cool, especially back then, if you were European, most of the opium group were French guys. I speak fluent French. I speak also Spanish, speak Portuguese, I speak Italian. So I got very close to the European community fast and had hookups really fast, you know, so
you're living.
I was living. I had a time of my life, you know. I think it was one of the best times of my life.
For sure.
You know? And so by then I learned quick, and I said, if I want to become somebody here, you know, I got to be grounded, you know, and what is my goal in Miami? So I said, I don't want to be just an employee in the city. I want to have my own business. You know, this is America at the end. You know, back home we always heard, like, America, the land of opportunities. So I said, I'm going to jump on that opportunity. So, but then September 11 happened. You know, I was making $300, $400, $500, $600, $700 a night, sometimes only on tips. They wouldn't pay me by the hour because it was illegal. You know, I had no papers.
But $300-400 tips every night.
I didn't
living
care
on the
about-
beach.
I didn't care about back then it was the servers were getting paid. I mean, with the deduction of the tips income, it was $3 an hour. You know,
You were
So
like, I
said,
got you. Don't worry about the hourly. Just
keep it.
keep the
you
tips
know?
coming.
Thanks for the job.
Yeah.
Keep the freaking
And a place to stay.
and a place to stay. So then I got my driver's license because for 10 years.
And you were how old at this time?
24.
So you're 24 years old. You got $500, and you're like, "Fuck this! I'm gonna be a business owner."
I'm living the life. Yes.
That's
And
crazy.
I started, you know, I got a driver's license. The Argentinian guy, you know, he died of cancer. God bless him, rest in peace, you know. But he gave me a lot of good directions, you know. He's like, get a driver's license. With that, you can open a bank account, you know. Back then, it was still easy because it was pre-September 11, you know. And so...
But he wasn't worried about you muscling in on the competition, you know?
No, he was very cool. But Patricio Capucha, he was super cool, you know. He was very crazy, you know, he was doing blow and party and out of control, you know, and
It sounds like the work atmosphere was great there, you know?
it was amazing, you know. I mean, 3 Argentinians, 2 Brazilians, and then 1 German guy, you know. And I always had to say, guys, we got to clean this shit up here, you know. I was,
You were the voice of reason.
I was the voice of reason there, yes. And then, so then I stayed there for a year. Then I moved into the Southgate Towers. Southgate Towers, a 1-bedroom on the bay, was $850 back then, you know. So I saved up my money, moved in there, and then I remember laying in bed in the Southgate Towers, and then I turn on TV and I see these airplanes flying into the World Trade Center, and I didn't pay much attention to it. I said, you know, it's probably some movie coming up, you know, and then I realized, oh my God, this is real, you know. So then I went to work that day, and the vibe was just so weird, you know. Everybody was so off, and my boss was like, you know, oh my God, the attacks and terrorist attacks, and I was like, what the fuck is that, you know? So sure enough, 3 days later, I think the same day they closed down Miami International Airport. I think they closed down all the airports. I think it was a week. So within a week, the place was empty here. You know, 0 tourism. Everybody was scrambling to get out, get home. You know, everybody wanted to leave, and the vibe was just bad, you know. So I stayed for another month here, but my tips went from $300-400 a night to $20 a night, you know.
I'm surprised people even went.
Yeah, I mean,
It was like nobody there.
Nobody. Lincoln Road was dead. Everything was dead. And I said, oh, my God, so what do you got to do now? So back then I was dating somebody, and she had friends in New York, and they said, you know, come up to New York, because New York is, you know, they were showing patriotism. They wanted to show, you know, you can't defeat New York. And everybody went out, actually, in New York. You know, it was the opposite of here. So, you know, I had a Chevy Blazer, totally banked up, put the mattress on top, canceled my lease, you know, and drove to New York after months. I drove to New York, I rented a basement.
No friends came with you? You just went solo?
No, with my girl at the time.
Oh, with your girl at the time. So you're like, hey, let's go to New York.
Yeah, she was the one that said it. She had a friend that was living there, Colombians, you know, and they said, come to New York. City is standing up, you know. They want to show that, you know, they can't be beaten down by terrorism. Everybody's out and about. Everybody's spending money. And so come up here. So I said, all right, I had to survive, you know, because I didn't have that much saving because I was so afraid. That
Miami was dead.
It was completely
dead. It was not 6 months at least.
You were here?
I was working at the gym.
Yeah.
I was working at the gym. I remember I was in the cardio room just sitting on a bike, and then I saw the planes crash, and I was like, that's not good, you know? And then everybody you could tell that people were in the gym were just kind of like noticing what was happening, and then just people started leaving. And then I think we closed early, like they were like, hey, from corporate, close. And then I think we stayed closed for like a week. It was something like that. And then when we opened back up, we came, but there was nobody there.
Which gym was it?
Bali Total Fitness.
Oh, I remember, yes.
Yeah. You remember?
Yes.
Bali
Which
Total
one,
Fitness.
Aventura?
I was actually at the one by the airport at that time.
Okay.
I think there's an elevation there now.
Okay.
But it used to be a Bally's there by the airport, and I was there at that moment when it happened.
Oh, Jesus.
And then it was just like, and that's corporate area, you know, so that's airport people, warehouses, district, you know, that whole area back there is like, so those people were not going to work. So it was just like dead. I remember it was dead. And then I think it took like 6 months for people to really start coming back. And I'm sure New York people were going strong because you had people still trying to, all the rubble and stuff. So I'm sure it was people coming in like crazy to support and kind of, I remember everybody was in New York. You're right. I remember that was like a lot of people standing up over there.
Yeah.
So you're over there, and then what happens?
So then I got to New York. I checked they got us an apartment which was in Middle Village, Queens, in the basement, you know. Sucked for me because the ceiling was lower than my head, you know. So I had to walk like this in the freaking apartment.
And how much was that rent?
I think it was $1,000 back then, you know.
Starting to go up.
Yeah, it was a kind of one bedroom, you know.
But nothing like your 850 one here, right?
No.
Nothing like it.
In the basement with a small little window, you would see half of the lawn from the backyard, you know, and no, terrible.
And you didn't like say, oh man, I messed up?
No, I didn't care. For me,
You were
it was,
good. You're
I
like,
was
let's do
good.
this.
It was survival mode. I didn't care. You know, I said, I got to keep going. My plan, I got to keep my eye on the goal. You know, I want to be a business owner. So then I had no job again, you know, and again, no documents, no, undocumented, you know. So I said, let's drive around Manhattan. Let's see, you know. So I went to the first place, which was an Italian spot. And they said, no, we can hire you. But I'll never forget this old man. He gave me the Zagat Survey. You know, it was a book. It was big then, of having all the restaurants. And it was, you know, by grade of number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. And he said to me, you know, apply only at the top 10 places. And if they don't hire you, when you buy 10 and they haven't hired you, go back to number 1. And I listened to that old Italian guy, you know, and I kept going to it. But they didn't want to hire me, so I started at...
You did the top 10 and none of them hired you?
No.
With your experience?
No, nobody, you know. They kept saying you don't have...
Because of the documents.
Yeah, A, that. B, they said New York is different than Miami, and, you know...
Haters.
Yeah, they said, you can't match our
You can't
hospitality.
match?
No, they didn't want to give me a chance.
You should have told them I lived in a studio with 5 other guys, you know, roaches everywhere. I'm committed, you know?
So one day we were driving around Times Square, you know, and there was this place called Babalu, and the owner was Rafi Mercado. He was half Cuban, half Puerto Rican, and he was a music producer. Funny enough, on top of the club was his office, and next office to him was Puff Daddy's office.
Oh, wow.
So I went to him and I said, listen, you know, he was standing outside with his bodyguards there with the bouncers of the club, you know, and there was a line outside. So I said to my girl, stop here. I'm going to talk to these guys, you know. So I went up to him, and I didn't know he was the owner, you know, and he was standing in front of this with the guys, and I said, listen, do you have a job for me? I really need a job, you know. And he's like, who are you? You know, I said, my name is Alex. So he said, in Spanish to the other guy, then, you know, he said something, I remember what, and I said, I speak Spanish. He's like, you white boys speak Spanish? How do you speak Spanish? I said, I'm from Miami. He's like, you're not from Miami. I can hear your fucking accent, you know?
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, I'm from Germany, but I lived in Colombia, Miami. And he's like, it's interesting. He's like, tell me more. And I said, yeah, I just moved here September 11. Miami's screwed. He's like, oh, yeah, Miami sucks right now, you know? And he's like, look, it's like my office is up there. Come back tomorrow. I have something for you, you know? Next day, went back, you know, took the train, went back there, saw Puff Daddy's office, and I was like, oh, my God, where did I end up, you know? And what was it, Bad Boy Records? Yeah, Bad Boy Records was outside, you know, and I said, oh, my God, where did it land? So I went in his office, and he was sitting there on his big desk, all these records, the golden records in the back, and Celia Cruz and whatnot, you know, and I said, hey, so yeah, I really need a job. He's like, look, the club is tough. I have everybody there, but I have a restaurant next door, which isn't really open to the public. It's only for my friends. This guy would do concerts. He had, you know, he was a producer and stuff, you know. So he said, I have a lot of good friends, and I have a lot of artists that I bring to this little space I have down there. I only open it 3-4 times a week for invites only. It had the little door with the little thing there, you know, and stuff. So, and he said, you're going to make great money. And I said, okay, great. I'm in, you know. And
sounds good.
I said, I'm all for it. So he had a little stage there. So do you know Latin music a lot? Or?
A little bit.
Yeah, so it was a lot of salsa, like El Canario, Tito Puentes and stuff like that, you know. So the old school salsa stuff, you know.
And it's a job that's paying.
It's a job that's paying. So there were no checks for his friends, you know. So you had all these Cubans, Puerto Ricans coming with their big gold chains, you know. We had great food. The chef was, he had...
What was this place called?
It had no name, but the other one, his chef, he was consulting. It wasn't Doug Rodriguez, but it was one of these Latino chefs that had on Columbus Ave, a very popular place, so he made the menu for him. They were all connected.
This sounds like a great spot.
Oh, my God, it was amazing.
Man.
We could eat whatever we want, so I had the greatest food always,
Oh,
you know.
wow.
It was like Latin fusion, you know, and then these guys would leave, you know, there was like maybe 10 tables, and we were a very small staff, and they would leave like $1,000 on the tables, and I was making a fortune. But then with time, the guy had also a lot of legal issues, So, the parole officers would come in, and I said, I'm going to get deported in this place, So I went to Balthazar, and Balthazar is...
At least it carried you a little bit, gave you a little lifeline.
I mean,
You probably
amazing
met
guy.
great people, too.
Yeah, he was
He
amazing.
sounds like he was a nice guy.
He was great.
Yeah.
They stole my jacket from the club. We shared the locker rooms, and I had to walk because I had no money. I walked to Queens from Manhattan, froze my ass off, told him. He took me the next day, walked with me into Macy's, and got me a new coat, because I didn't have much money. So anyways, then I got scared with my legal situation about, being deported. So there was Balthazar. I don't know if you know Balthazar.
No.
But Balthazar, top place in New York. It was the number 3 on that list. It was Union Square Cafe, Blue Water Grill, and Balthazar. And I went every week. They had an open house every Thursday. So I went every week. And this lady, Roberta, she would tell me all the time, you're not qualified, you're not qualified. Every week I went again. And she said, oh, my God, you again? And I said, lady, trust me. So anyways, long story short, I made it up to management. I got hired, made it up to management. Keith McNally owns also Pastis here in Wynwood now. So he's the same owner. And so I started my career in New York, and I learned a lot. I learned from the best, I became really good at hospitality, with my languages. I grew very fast, and I said, okay, I got to go back to Miami. I love Miami. New York is great, all good, but the weather was never my friend, Came back.
The weather's everybody's problem there.
Yes. The weather was just the trains. It was just not for me. The first 6 months at school, I stayed there a year and a half. First 6 months, you're kind of like a living tourist there.
Yeah.
But once I've seen all New York, I was done with it. It was just the hustle was too much. So then I came back to Miami, and with Balthazar on my resume as a manager opened a lot of doors for me, And I became the GM of Casa Tua. So I became the GM of Casa Tua with Mickey Grandene. It was in 2003, I think. I became the general manager there. He opened a private club. So now I was running Casa Tua, and it opened way more doors for me because the who was there. And he started.
Miami was probably back up, right?
Yeah, Miami was hopping again, and he opened a private club. So I remember the Greenies, Jonathan Green, the ones that built the Setai that was built back then, So I met everybody there,
Yeah, the Zoo in Miami was starting to be
the spot. It started, and it was, I met Jamie Foxx. I mean, every celebrity that would you imagine I met at Casa Tua back then, Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I felt I was on top of the world, So then Tom Bilante, the one of Carpaccio, he wanted to open a restaurant, and he knew me because I was a short time a waiter at Carpaccio back then. And he knew me, and he said, look, he came to Casa Tua. He's like, Alex, I want you to run my place, and I'm going to give you a percentage. And he opened up Vivi, which was where now Prime Italian is. Mm-hmm. So open it up, but a lot of promises made, not kept by him, unfortunately, but all good.
Great location.
Great location, but he Carpaccio is very well for what it works, and they have a manager there that I learned a lot from too. His name is Alex Callas, a Greek guy, strong guy in hospitality. I mean, Carpaccio is an oiled machine.
Yes.
Then Alex opened all the
They have a great location too, though.
And they've been fighting there, and they opened very small, and they grew into it, and all good, I love Carpaccio. And for the story that I have with them, and then, Prime Italian came because Miles Shavitz, the owner of Prime 112, he then heard that Gibson's from Chicago, the Steakhouse, wanted to open a location there. Where now Kraft is, Gibson was supposed to move in there, but the location was too big. So they started negotiating with Tom Bilante to buy that space and move Gibson's across from Prime 112. Miles wasn't
like,
having it. He's like, not happening.
Not on my watch.
Not happening here right now. So then Miles said, how much do you want? And I was supposed to get 10% of the deal. I got nothing. I got a little bit money from one of right-hand mans from Tom, which name was Bobby Era, One Finger Bobby, and he was bookie, cool guy, heavy Italo-American, very connected, you know. And he gave me an envelope, and he said, "Here, this is because my friend Tom didn't take care of you. He also passed away with brain cancer. Rest in peace, Bobby." And then, in the same token, one of my guests at Vivi was Peter Lofton. I don't know if you know him. He used to be the owner of the Versace Mansion. He bought it, and so he said, I said, you know, I'm done here. And they're selling it. He's like, oh, my God. He's like, I want you. He's like, I need to revamp the mansion. It was called Casa Casarina. He's like, I want to revamp the mansion. I want you, and you're the right guy for me. Alex, I love you. Come on board. So I went, met him. He made me the directors of operation. We revamped the hotel.
Great job, because it was really bad at that time. Before
Yeah. He was, you know, Peter was a very good guy, but he was from North Carolina. He sold his telecommunication company to BTI, to AT&T back then. He made, I think, $350 million. And Peter was in a good soul, but in the city that, just like many, got burnt here, you know?
Yeah.
The blow, the girls, the liquor.
Miami
Miami has
does
magic.
what it does.
Money goes away fast.
It does.
You know?
It does.
So he blew through a lot of money of it, you know, and he screwed the first vamp of his first way of doing Casa Casarina. So he really wanted to bring it back, but it was just a shit show.
Yeah.
I mean, he was $2 million in debt and outstanding vendors. We ended up opening 1116 Ocean. But then one night I get a call from a Czech guest, and he's like, he was paying for Johnny's room. I think it was $15,000 or $20,000 a night.
Whoa.
And he calls me, this guest, and you know, he's like, we are leaving, and I'm hearing in the background the music is so loud, and he's like, was there with his family, you know, and he's like, we are leaving. This is insane. I'm gonna sue you guys. And I'm like, what's going on, sir? You know, and he's like, I have this giant, red-headed, naked guy in the pool with a bunch of naked girls, and he has the whole sound system on of the entire mansion, you know?
No way. And who was it?
Peter Lofton.
Oh, wow.
He wouldn't care, you know? He was so into this craziness, you know, that, I mean, he would go on the balcony naked on Ocean Drive, you know? He was just out of control. And so I said, Peter, you know, it's not going to work like this. And he's like, Alex, I pay you, you know.
Don't worry about it.
He's like, I pay you, fuck this, you know. And I'm like, no, this is not my reputation. You know, I can't do this. In the same token.
Because you got to deal with the headaches, you know. And then you don't want to deal with the headaches. You know? So people don't understand that. Nobody wants to deal with the headaches. The money could be there, but sometimes the headaches are not worth it, you know.
I didn't want to deal with it, you know, because then it's not a real job, you know. And I have integrity. I was all about hospitality always, you know. For me, that was very important because I have passion for hospitality. I love hospitality. And then I knew a guy named Wolfgang Zwiener from New York. He owns Wolfgang Steakhouse in New York. He was a waiter at Peter Luger's. He opened his own place. And he said, look, I have this place in Los Angeles, and it's not doing well. I'm going to bring you there. And there was this other company, WDI, a Japanese company. So I was brought up there to run things. And
another move.
To Los Angeles. They checked me into Beverly Hills. I had an apartment there.
Nice, we're moving on up.
Yes. So I went there, started there, and huge shocker, completely different Los Angeles, you know, but...
You liked it.
My God.
You got there, your first thought was, oh, I love this.
Oh, my God. I was like, Los Angeles, California.
That time must have been great, too. Those were the years I was like,
So
Beverly Hills and all, you know?
Yeah, it was absolutely. I mean, I had a few weird experiences, you know. They have jaywalking that I didn't know what that law is, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
they have it here now, too.
Yeah?
Yeah.
They enforce it?
They enforce it. If you cross the street and you're not at the crosswalk, they'll pull you over, ask you for your license, give you a $60 ticket for jaywalking.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Thanks for letting me know.
Yeah. My neighbor told me he was walking his dog. He's like, man, I just got a ticket. And I was like, what happened?
Jesus.
Yeah, he's like, I crossed the street in the middle, and the cop pulled me over right there. Walking, pulled him over. Hey, pull over. He stopped with the dog. He's like, yo, give me your license. Boom, license. Ticket, jaywalking.
Jesus.
Yeah. They're around here. They don't play. Miami Beach is another animal. Out here, they're strict.
Now when I went I went home, it was like 11:30 at night in Beverly Hills. I walked to my apartment, so there was like in Beverly Hills at 11 o'clock night, there's nobody. Back then, it was 2000 and
Yeah, LA's always been an early town, you know, where it
yeah.
always kind of went to sleep early. But
Especially
like 1,
Beverly
2
Hills.
o'clock a.m. was like the latest things were open.
Yes, that was a shocker for me too. You know that somebody comes in a club to you at 12:45 and grabs your drink and throws it in the trash. Like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah. Wow, it was like that.
Yeah, it was like that. So then, I mean, they have some illegal drinking places there. It's
Yeah.
usually the hookah lounges.
Right.
You know, you get
Yeah.
the drinks, but you got to keep it under the couch. You know.
Yeah. But
So-
not the prime spots. The prime
No,
spots
no,
were all
no.
closed.
They were all closed. So Beverly Hills, I remember I'm walking home. It's totally quiet. There's nobody there. So I'm walking across the street, and then boom, the blue and red lights come up. Woo! Stop right there, sir. You know. I'm
Really?
like, oh my God, what did I
Yeah.
do? You know.
Uh-huh.
And I said, what's going on? And I was legal already by then.
Oh,
you know?
thank God.
Yeah, got it. So I always said, this can't be immigration, you know? So I'm telling the officer, he's like, stop there, stay against the wall. I'm like, what the fuck did I do, you know?
Yeah.
So he tells me, sir, I need your license. He's like, I said, officer, what did I do? He's like, jaywalking. I said, what is that, you know? He's like, crossing the street on a red light. I'm like, so that's called what? He's like, jaywalk. He's like, give me a license, you know? Gave him my license. I had a Miami, Florida license. He's looking at it. He's like, oh, my God, Miami, Florida, you know? He's like, of course you don't know what's jaywalking, you know? He's like, you guys do whatever you want to do down there, you know? And I said, all right, you know, so what is the fine, officer? He's like, it's $100. I'm like, look, I work for a company here, you know? I really didn't know. He's like, look, buddy. And I was wearing a suit with a tie and everything, you know? And he said to me, look, this is the law. It's $100. I'm going to give you a break. But if I ever see you again, you're going to get a $100 fine. I said, all right, deal. So then when I went home, I was like, because these fucking lights were like, you had to stand sometimes in Beverly Hills like 5 minutes till it would turn freaking green, you know? So I'm like, I can't do this. I can't take on a walk that takes me 10 minutes. I can't be walking 30 minutes, you know? So I would go to the alleys and make it like Mission Impossible. Look where the cop cars, you know, and then
He was
run
probably
across the
looking for
street.
you too. He was probably dying to bust your ass.
He was on me, you know. And yeah, funny things, you know. So then, anyways, I stayed there, and I used to smoke weed back then, you know, and I would smoke at the window, you know. So one day, a bunch of cops come, you know. So the neighbors complained across the street that I'm smoking weed there, but they had no evidence, you know. So they were like at the door, you know, and bang, bang, Beverly Hills police, and I had to laugh so much. I had to laugh so loud because of Beverly Hills cop, you know.
Yeah.
And the guy, because I was high,
Yeah,
the
of course,
cops was
yeah,
like,
yeah.
I'm like, he's like, why are you laughing? I said, sorry, sir. I'm from Germany, and I watched, when I was a child, I watched Beverly Hills Cop. So when you guys like Beverly Hills Police,
You
I
think
just
of
had to
Eddie
laugh.
Murphy.
So the cop had to smile, you know, he's
Yeah.
like, look, we're here because you're smoking weed out of the window. I said, no, I'm smoking cigarettes because it's non-smoking in the apartment. He's like, it's weed. But he said, all right. The Eddie Murphy story was funny, but don't do it again.
That's
you know?
some serious policing they got
Oh
over
my
there,
God,
huh?
Beverly Hills is very serious.
Jesus.
Now, not anymore. You know, now I've seen that it went very downwards.
probably
but back
not.
then in 2008, well, they were on top of it. So, anyways, worked there. I did the 2008 Grammy after party with House of Hype. There was everybody from Babyface, L.A. Reid. Kim Kardashian was nobody back then. Kim Kardashian was standing at the bar waiting for Paris Hilton to arrive, and I saw her, and I said, oh, she's pretty, you know? And she was nobody back then yet, you know? So I did that, but then LA was just horrible, you know? The traffic, you know? I didn't feel the city. Everything was so spread out, you know? So I said, I'm making a lot of money here. Went to Hawaii a couple of times, worked there, and I said, I got to get out of this company. I got to get out from here, you know? The work environment wasn't good, you know.
The police are cracking down on me.
Yeah, it wasn't my vibe, you know. Constantly in traffic, you know. And I said, I'm getting out of here.
Back to Miami.
Back to Miami, came back here, and then I worked for, I was hired by Danny DeVito. They had DeVito's.
Oh, yeah, that was nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was the GM there, started there, and by the way, I've been always working and never took a
Hospitality.
day off.
Yeah, you know, you were always on the grind.
8 years, never a day off, never called in sick. I was very responsible, and
You were either working or looking for a job in the times that you were off.
No, I never had to look for a job.
'Cause all those gaps were
only
fast,
at the
huh?
beginning. Once I became a manager, I was always hired on the spot. People would call me and ask me to work for them.
Yeah, once you left New York. But prior to that, when you were off, you were looking for a job
Yes.
aggressively. So you were either working or you never, once you got to Miami, you were like...
Always working. Yeah. And even as a manager, I worked 7 days a week.
Because nobody wants to work anymore, just so you know. That's
No,
why,
I know.
People don't like to work. They have a reason to not work for anything. You know what I mean?
No,
They'll find a reason. You give them the day off, they're like, I don't know if I can take the day off, you know? You're like, no, you have the day off. No, I don't even know if I can take that. They don't want to do nothing.
I didn't want it. You know, I didn't want to have the days off. I wanted to be there. I wanted to bring up the numbers because I was also in a few spots I was based on performance. You know, I was making a huge salary, but I could have earned much more once I met those numbers. You know, and I wanted to make sure I meet the numbers for me. And then I also worked the doors at night. Even I was the GM or directors of operation. I always wanted to make sure that I at the door because I wanted to see the guests. I wanted to see how the flow is of the operations. And I would get all these tips in my hands, you know, especially Casa Tua. Back then, Mickey, don't listen. But people would say, hey, you have a table? No. $50 in your hand, you have a table now? 100, $200. Oh, just something came up open, huh?
It did, right?
Yeah. So sometimes I would make, you know, $2,000, $3,000 on a weekend additionally to my salary, you know. So I kept saving with the goal to own my own business. So fast forward, then I started to work for David Manero, Danny DeVito, and the main investor was John Rosati, that amazing guy. I'm a partner with him now at the Delray office, the restaurant. This amazing guy, John Rosati. He's from a dealership, and we became friends. I'm friends with his son, Adam Rosati, so we became very friends, and we stayed in touch always, because then I left DeVito's, and I became a partner in a club that was my first business then. My first business in Miami was a club on Lincoln Road called Vice Lounge, next to Set, and became a partner there. Got into nightlife in Miami, which was one of the worst decisions that I made because it was just, you know, along with Dave Grutman battling the opium group, trying to get them out of business, you know, along with having Set nightclub next to it, promoters firing,
Competition's tough.
Oh my God, that was wild, you know.
And in those times, all the heavy hitters were around, so it wasn't like it was one or two people controlling the thing. It was a lot of people had their hands in the cookie jar, you know. So you had a lot of people battling.
The opium group, Roman Jones, you know, they had Mokai, they had Mansion, they had Opium Garden. I mean, there were so many clubs and heavy hitters, like you said, Mint, you know, and they're still around, you know, because he had this South American niche, you know, the high-paying.
But a lot of operators that have their niche are still around. Miami still has that. It's just there was the mom and pops that came in through the pandemic that try to open up new things, that those guys are struggling because they don't have enough clientele from years and years. But like you said, the Mint is still around, you know. You got the Grutman still around, and, you know, the people that have their regular flow, like Kiki is still around, you know.
Because Roman was smart, you know. He knew very early that things were coming to an end, you know. He saw it, and he
saw it coming.
He sold his clubs, he got out of it, and he went across the river, you know. He saw what was happening in Miami Beach, you know, and he saw how it was changing. And, of course, Grutman was battling them, you know, very, very hard. You know, he had a personal cringe with them, you know. And Liv was just blowing up, you know. I mean, with Jeff Sofer behind him. And, you know, and a lot of people talk about him, and I just can say, you know, everybody can give you a golden key. But what really matters is to turn that key every day and make it profitable, you know. So he made it. He knew how to market it himself.
They have a great team, you know.
Oh yes, he knows.
They muscled everybody out, you know. They did what they dang, you know. But like I said, Roman was smart. He went to the thing and he went to the river and he blew. It worked out amazing.
And you know,
there's a niche for everybody, you know. You just gotta find one and make sure that the clients like it, and you gotta treat the clients good, because the people that come now are back like in that 2007 era where you got your clients that they come in. They'll be here on
Yes.
the weekends. Don't expect this huge flow of people like the pandemic. It doesn't exist anymore.
No.
But if you have your clients that come, they like your service, they like what you have to offer, they'll be back and they spend money there, and they'll be regulars. You live off your regulars, but you got to treat them good. And I think that's something that a lot of operators kind of lost. They're treating your guys good, because back in those days when you worked in nightlife, it was always about treating the client good. I remember that was always a big thing. Your guys that came, your regulars, you always took care. Like when I went out, the guys that were running whatever place I was always took care. Roman was huge on that. You know, a lot of places I went, they were always big on just taking care of the client. And I think that people got away from that because they were just flooded with it. And then people remember, you didn't take care of me, you know?
And besides that, the community was very connected, you know? So, for example, me as a general manager from Casa Tua, the GM of Mansion or Opium Garden or Mokai, he would say, hey, Alex, you know, send me some of your wealthy clients there that you have at Casa Tua, send them over to me, and I hook you up. So when I would walk into the club back then, you know, I had a bottle of champagne waiting for me, you know, I had my space there, I could bring my friends, you know, so everybody was taking care of everybody, you know, and it wasn't oversaturated, you know, and you had Wall with Nicola Siervo, you know, also a legend, you know, those are all legends, you know, and they made what Miami is today, you know. And Roman in particular was smart to identify the Miami River. You know, it was a very smart move because you had Garcias and Casablanca there, you know. There was nothing.
Nothing.
And he brought...
Well, Sea Spice was there.
Sea Spice was
there,
first,
yeah.
yes.
Sea Spice was doing great there. Sea Spice was
you're
crushing
right,
it.
yes.
Yes, they
Sea
had
Spice was
a
crushing
lot
it.
of some of my friends were there. They were like general managers, and they were doing
Correct.
amazing. And then Roman came and got right next to Sea Spice,
Correct,
and then
I
he blew
forgot
up from
that.
there. Yeah,
Correct,
Sea Spice had their thing going on for a while. They
anchored it, yes,
Yeah, they
correct.
anchored it. Okay, so let's get into the meat and potatoes of the podcast and of the interview. Why is it important for entrepreneurs to know what's going on with the policies in their city?
So, you know, I never cared about it, you know. I never, first of all, before I had a green card for like 10 years, so I could never vote. You know, I wasn't allowed to vote, so I never cared about politics. It never mattered to me. When it first started to matter to me, politics was during the pandemic, when they said open, close, only inside open, not the outside, only outside open, only 5 people can be inside, move the mask up, move the mask down, work with the mask, sanitize when you eat, you know. I mean, they were playing, you know, me and my wife, we kept all our employees at Burgermeister, but we were... every day we had to get these emergency alerts from our mayors or, you know, from our favorite friend Fauci and what was going on and what is allowed now and what DeSantis says. And I'm like, oh my God, you know, they could totally control your business, you know? So that's where I started to pay attention more and more, you know? And then I personally believe I always look at the guy in the mirror, you know? So I look at, what can I do personally for me that works best and for my business? You know, what do I need to do to make the best impact for my business? You know, you can't be looking at, I don't think it matters to say, it's the president's fault, you know? It doesn't matter, you know? You know, even in crisis, people make money. You know, you just got to identify what's your goal, what applies to your business in particular. You got to pay attention to the policies and how they could affect you. But then, you know, don't make it about the policies, make it about your business and how you can adapt your business to whatever is going on and to make profit from that, you know? And so I started to get more and more involved into listening to the politics and taxes, you know, and how much more I'm going to pay taxes if I vote for this person or that person, you know? How is that going to affect my business if they tell you now, for example, what they did here in Miami Beach when south of 5th, they said, you know, no more liquor past 2.
Yeah.
You know,
they
which
put restrictions on the times. That was tough. A friend of mine owned a liquor store, and he was dealing with that. You're right. The pandemic opened up everybody's eyes to like these, like, whoa, wow, you guys can really
So much
control what I
power.
do, right?
So much power, you know?
And who's going to pay the bills then?
Yes.
That was always my thing. Like, at first it sounded cool, and I was like, all right, 2 weeks off. I haven't taken a day off in my whole life.
Yes.
I'm going to take these 2 weeks. But then after 2 weeks, I was like, wait, hold up. The bills are still coming. So what are we doing here? Who's paying?
And these politicians then had so much power, you know. And look, Story, he closed it right after they came through with that law, and so these policies affect you,
Oh, yeah.
greatly. And then I started to pay more attention to it, and then it became from national politics, but I focus more on local politics because those local politicians or local policies have the most impact from the state to the county to your municipality. They have the most impact on your life, on what they can do your business.
It starts there for sure.
It starts there. And it's not only for as a business perspective, it's like I said, it's our workforce, by everything that's been done since the pandemic till today, of how much these shots that our politician calls, not to sound the overly sophisticated, but they affected everybody greatly, So I started to pay more and more attention to it, and what is really political mumbo jumbo, just they say it to get elected, or what is true, what can happen if these people get elected, because some of them are very extreme, in the policies they want to do, and once they get elected, they get into commission meetings, and then on commission meetings, they get things put on the agenda, so you can have either a pro-business party or a non-pro-business party. And it's not only about the party, it's about the individual commissioners and how much are they going to affect what you can do,
We were also talking about, I don't want to get into the policies themselves because I think people can go into your Instagram and I want them to see for themselves the things that you have to say and how you educate and let people know what's going on, how important they are, like small things like the oil tankers, like if there's no oil tankers, how do we fill up the cruise ships? What are we doing here? We need these people to come in, So it's just, I want to redirect people for that because they need to go there and they really need to watch the videos and just educate themselves, know what's going on in the city so they can be aware. Because we're all in this together, But you've also grown your Instagram tremendously. So what advice do you have for people, or what have you learned on your Instagram journey of what you're doing right now, documenting all these things that you're doing? What's helped you? What's something that you've learned?
What helped me is to understand how everything works, And it also helped me to, and the way I do my videos is I wanted to dumb down politics, not in a bad way. I wanted to raise awareness enough that everybody understands the importance of the elections, the importance of who is running, and do your research about the person that's running, what's really behind it, For example, I hear, I'm not going to name them, but I heard a politician today on a podcast speaking, it's very sad that the majority of our population can't make ends meet anymore, and I want to change that, And that's an example. One politician can't change our affordability crisis, That's just a given, That needs to be a combination of the county and each municipality. They all need to get on the same boat and fight it together, But learn about your politicians. Learn what is your vision of your city? What do you want your city to be? What policies could affect you as a business owner, as a workforce worker, or as a student? Learn who they are and go behind it and dig a little bit deeper. We have AI to our hands now, Go a little bit back. What is their history? Why did they get in politics, And ask, hey, this politician is saying they're going to do this and this. Put it into AI and ask, can they really do it? Because the way I started is just to ask a lot of questions. I had to educate myself to understand politics. I had to ask a lot of questions for myself. So ask a lot of questions to AI. Is this really true? Can they really make it happen? Or is this just to get elected and then, well, I'm sorry, I tried, I can't really, they know very well, So do your research and see how in your particular case can it impact you or benefit you,
So you think AI is a good tool to use to help people educate themselves when it comes to making decisions and fact-checking?
Depends on how you prompt it to be. And what I do is I do my own online research, then I grab it, and then I ask all of them the same question. And then I compare, So if there's discrepancies, then because you can't trust it 100%, So when there's discrepancies, I ask and I re-ask, and I make the AIs battle against each other, But most of my stuff, I get it from public records, county records, court documents, filings, state. I look a lot at the state and what the state does to our county and what the county has to report to our state, And so over the past year, I've done so much research that luckily now my channel has grown so much that a lot of people send me information, so I get a lot of information, and so I verify the information. But
so you're using AI as a way to help you gather more information, and then you're ultimately making the decision, putting them up against each other.
Yes,
that's definitely a great strategy.
Yes, I make AI battle against each other because I go into public records myself, so I read a lot of court documents. So sometimes it's a lot of pages. So I throw them into AI. So I ask the question that I want to know about these particular cases and these particular policies or funding, because funding is very important, and where our tax dollar goes. Before I never cared. Now I care greatly. If I see that the funds are not allocated properly and what I'm finding is horrendous, and it upsets me.
Yes.
Because we pay a lot of taxes, because also a lot of people get this tax break confused in Florida. We have no income tax, but we do pay a little bit more in insurances, and we pay a lot more in sales tax and et cetera. So it's all, once you dumb it down and you lay it all out, you understand it more. So I encourage everybody to really look into that, because it's important once elections come up. Because what I've noticed too is voter turnout in the county or in the city is very low, so they benefit from these career politicians benefit from it, and I'm not the brightest in the world, but luckily I have an IQ, so I wonder, how did these people get elected? So ask these questions, how they slip through, with getting the votes from the elderly homes. There's so much shady stuff going on.
Yeah.
There's good ones, but there's a lot of ones that take advantage of the system,
I feel like running a city should be like running a business.
Exactly.
But I don't understand why it's not ran that way. Or are we just electing people that just don't know how to run a business? So, they go to school, they have these, they never slept in a studio with 5 other dudes and had to figure it out, with the roaches everywhere. They were in college, going to school, and just being told, this is how it's done. But when you hit the real world, that's not how it works. The things that you learn in the books don't teach you when you got credit cards that don't go through. What do? Payroll that's due. How do you pay it? How do you make it? So they don't teach you the real experiences.
P&Ls, it's a business.
It's just the city, so just more money's coming, It's just like more money comes. It's just in the air and it's just spend it,
And no accountability.
Yeah.
Zero accountability. If I make these mistakes,
we're supposed to make them accountable.
Yes, and we don't. And if we run our business the way many of these cities are run or these counties run, we are out of business. That's our accountability. We can't pay our employees. We're going to be sued for that. We can't pay our rent. We're going to be kicked out of the business.
100%. So, consequences for sure.
Consequences, and we're going to be held accountable one way or the other. And these people are just not. And they have their terms. They do their terms, and then they get out of it, and then the whole crap goes to the next one. And a lot of them, I wonder, how often have they read a P&L, And then there's this disconnect. First, when they want to be elected, they come to you, they knocked on your door. Hi, how are you? Please vote for me. These are my policies, Then when they get elected and you have these real life issues and, things that they have ran on and you said, hey, what's up?
Yeah.
You get these generalized answers, and you see, like you said, go to my videos and you see what's going on with the funding of our county and stuff and what they're doing with the money, with the fuel depot disaster, that is a complete mess.
Yeah.
And at the end, the money's got to come from somewhere. So there's a budget, and it's a $1 billion business, running the county, it's a $1 billion business, and if they can't get, for example, if you see my video from yesterday where if you see the funding of their salaries take up 77% from the city of Miami, for example, 77% of the income from the taxpayers goes to salaries. So every 70 cents of the dollar that goes in as tax money goes to salaries. So we have what? 33% left for what? That's why a lot of streets are not getting fixed. That's why they pull funding from here. Now, for example, they cut down on routes, on the public transportation, you know. So
Traffic is a mess.
It's a mess, you know. And I mean, there's so many nonsense and scandals that I have studied over the past year now that is shocking, you know. And I wonder, I think we need a non-politician to be elected and go in there and grab it by the bull by the horns and clean house.
Yeah, let's just fix this thing. This thing is messed up around here.
If that's government, I understand. Maybe I don't know how it works.
Yes.
But if that's how it's working, then it's not working, you know? So whatever you guys doing isn't right, you know? So we need to change whatever it's been done. And
because the entrepreneur mindset of yours is just go in there and I'll fix it and I'll change it. And probably in there, once you're in there, it's probably a mission.
Let's get accountable for stuff. Let's be transparent.
Let's try to make it happen.
Let's be transparent what we're doing with it. Where's the money going? Why is it going? Let's be fully transparent. Let's speak to the public constantly. Let's stop these ribbon cutting bullshit, videos. Let's stop presenting ourselves and everybody is there in front of a podium. Nobody cares. Let's fix the problems, you know, cut that out, you know. Don't celebrate these stupid meetings that they have and, oh, we have done this now, but hey, there's so many problems. Let's cut the partying, you know, and the celebration of these little goals that they're achieving. Let's really fix everything. Let's get in there. Let's run this county and city like a P&L, you know. Let's be aggressive about it. How come our airport, you know, is the way it is, you know? How come we had a half-penny tax to fund our metro rail system and we only got 4 miles when we were supposed to get 90 miles, you know? Let's stop this nonsense, you know? Let's see it as a business. Let's, you know, get in there, analyze it as a business person, and hold your own staff accountable. They're making, you know, some of these people make $400,000, $500,000 a year. In my business, if I want to make 500 grand, let's say I need 10% profit, you know, to generate in burgers $5 million, that's a lot of money. So
500 is crazy.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So, and then, you know, like this fool Jeepo mess up, and they weren't even fired. You know, they resigned from their position so they can get, they can collect the retirement funds. You know,
they knew it was coming.
So, but why is there nobody on top of this? Why is nobody sitting down and saying, "Hey guys, what's your department doing? Hey, what are you doing? Hey, what's going on? You know, let's go, guys. We need to get this done. What do you mean we're fixing one bathroom at a time at the airport? You know, what's going on here? You know." For example, LaGuardia was fixed by this Scandinavian construction company, built on time and on budget. Why don't we go there and say to the Scandinavian company, hey, come down to Miami-Dade, fix our airport on budget and on time. We really need it.
Miami-Dade may step on their own toes because sometimes they want to get something done and then they got permitting departments that don't speak with the other department. And then it's like, okay, why don't you guys just talk to each other and get things done so things move quicker, and it doesn't work that way. They want you to go talk to the other person.
You wonder why, and we are now the new tech hub here. Like, my question is, okay, so we have all these billionaires moving here, you know, some are in favor of it, some are against it, you know, but since they're already here, you know, and a guy like Ken Griffin, you know, and, I mean, we have everybody here now, you know, from Palantir to Google to Facebook, Meta, we have everybody here. Why doesn't our county mayor say, you know, let me sit down with all these guys. Let me make a summit with all of them, you know. Let me explain them, because even Ken Griffin says when he was interviewed, what does he think about Miami? And he thinks the future is great. But he even said that our county can't keep up with its growth. Our infrastructure can't keep up with it, you know. And if we want to be a real city, we need a metro rail. We need a metro mover to go from Wynwood to Brickell to Miami Beach. We need to connect all that. We need to alleviate traffic. We need to fix our sewage system. There's so much we need to do.
That bridge over there by the downtown, they got to finish that. That thing's been like 2-3 years now.
Crazy. Yeah. So you wonder why
Two little lanes to go in and out. It takes hours just to cross that bridge. It takes hours to go in and out.
And then they still do Art Basel, and it's a complete clusterfuck, you know? So you wonder that. So the question is, why is that? You
Yeah.
know, why they keep the same contractors?
Yeah.
Why these employees are doing their 9 to 5,
Yeah.
and we really need employees right now that, like me when I started, 24/7 on the grind. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's get this done. Of course, there's labor laws that prevent it from
But they
them.
can have different crews at different shifts working around the clock.
Let's get it done.
Yeah.
We got to catch up.
Yeah.
We are now behind.
Okay, it rains and you guys stop. Okay, so then bring the crew to work triple time. You know what I mean? And when they come back,
Get it done.
Yeah.
We need to approach it from a different perspective.
Like if it was free, then okay, take your time. But it wasn't free. That's
It's
the thing, So and that's the problem what people have. I think nobody cares really if the salaries went up. If you can look out there and be like, wow, this city's great, But you go out there in downtown and it's rough,
It is. It's very rough, and it's also our services are rough.
Yeah.
We don't have a trash plant here. The one in Doral burned out. We don't have one now. We are shipping the trash, and we are producing 5 billion or 5 million tons. Sorry, I don't know the number now, of trash in the county, and we are shipping it across Florida now. What do you think is more expensive, to have a trash plant here that when it burned down, it was estimated at 1.6 billion.
Yeah.
Right now, the price, because again we slept on it, so now it's 3.6 billion.
To clean the burnt.
No, to build a new one.
To build a new one, because the one that was burned down, that's it, is no good.
It's no good. It's done.
It's done. You can never throw trash on there again.
Done. Finished. So now we're taking trucks that drive our trash across Florida. I think how much that costs.
Yeah. I know. That doesn't even make sense. I don't understand that.
It's everything is a mess.
Yeah.
And everything is meeting over meeting over meeting over meeting.
Lots of meetings.
Committees over directors, over representatives and this and that, and nothing gets done.
A lot of chiefs.
A lot of chiefs, not enough Indians.
None.
And the job isn't getting done. So I need everybody to pay attention to that, because if we really want Miami to grow, it cannot be only skyscrapers.
Yes.
We need our infrastructure to grow. We are a real city. We have real services that are needed for a city. We have our roads with potholes and stuff, in the city with the most billionaires in the United States. Cannot be,
Yeah.
So that's what I'm looking at, and that's what I want everybody to look at. And whatever has been done right now, if that's government, if that's politics, it's not working.
Yeah. Hopefully the entrepreneurs step up, because it seems like the private sector is always the one that steps up and fixes things,
Of course.
Tries to make things better. So hopefully that continues to happen in Miami, and we continue to see a lot of more entrepreneurs coming in and having success. I don't like seeing guys come and struggle or anything like that, or not be able to grow in the city. It's a wonderful city. But, I think things are, like you say, very expensive.
And
So
we need to fix that first before anything, because
get the prices down on some things.
Yeah, but that needs to be a joint venture. We need to now take care of our workforce,
Yes.
because that's the
And you
first thing.
mentioned living, put up some towers, right, that are not Mercedes-Benz, some Toyota towers, right?
Yes, some
Where's
Kia,
the Toyota towers?
some Rush.
Honestly, most of those towers are Toyota and Kia towers. They just dress them up real nice, because I think that's
Yes.
where the overprice is. It's in the condo market, where it's like that's where the workforce should live.
Fake
but when it's
luxury.
$5,000 for a 2-bedroom, who
It's
can live
insane.
there? Yeah, it's too much.
So what we need to do right now is, because a city cannot function without its workforce,
Mm-hmm.
because we need teachers, we need nurses, we need, even the billionaires need drivers, they need maids, they need handymans. We need workforce.
Yes.
A city without its workforce that can make a living in its workforce
Yes.
cannot function.
Without being stressed out. You want people to be happy and work. You
And
want to have
everybody is stressed.
receptionists that can make receptionist money, because she just wants to be a receptionist and be able to live where she works. She doesn't have to take a bus 5 hours. You know what I mean? Nobody's going to do that. People in Miami are not going to do that.
No, great point. And for example, our workforce is waking up right now of making decision of, oh my God, my car payment. Oh my God, insurance. Oh my God, rent. Oh my God, I can't afford the supermarket. Oh my God, I got sick. I cannot get to work. I can't work for a week. I don't have any savings. So now I have to make the decision. I'm going to be late on my rent or my car payment, So if your car gets towed, some of these people, they can't get their cars out of the tow lot anymore. So we have these problems that need to be in joint venture addressed, and there needs to be one of these, and which should be the county mayor, in my opinion, that needs to call a summit with all the municipalities, with all the cities, and make a summit and say, hey guys, we have this problem. Austin does it. Austin is the only city in the US that the cost of living went down 10%. Actually, it didn't increase because they addressed in 2020 workforce housing. And it's done by zoning. There's many ways to do this.
Yes, of course. And we have plenty of space. We have space.
We do. But we have landlords that charging here for old dump apartments with a kitchen from 1970 for 1 bedroom here in Miami Beach for $2,000, And we had the demand. Demand is going down. The demand is only going down when we address that and we do it in a joint venture. But
the fake demand that's driven by the worker having to squeeze his neck, that's got to move. And the only way to relieve that is to relieve that and get those people to another place where they can afford housing that's clean, that's nice, that the city should have. These, like you said, zoning. Like, this is a good 5-block radius where we can put our nice little neighborhood here with not super expensive stuff, and people, workforce can live here. But you got guys, like you said, are working as waiters, and they got to split a $5,000 apartment, and it's like, man, you're squeezing people's necks. They're like, at some point, they're just like, I'd rather leave.
Or you have situations like, for example, these roommate situations. So 3 roommates live in an apartment now in Brickell, beautiful apartment, 2-bedroom apartment, boom, boom. One guy loses their job, the whole economy of that roommate situation is done. That's why Brickell had a lot of evictions last year. One of the highest in the county. Because it's all roommate situations, or you have situationships where people are living together as a couple, even they broke up already, but they can't move on because they don't have the means. And that's why I hate when I read comments like, well, if you can't afford it, leave. Some of these people can't move from one block to the other. I have people writing me, Uber drivers that work Uber all day and sleep in their cars at night. So our reality is way different. So that
telling people to just leave is not the fix, because you need people.
That's rude. And listen, don't preach.
You need your workforce,
because you need it, and it can hit everyone.
Yeah, of course.
Everybody can face a situation that it comes down to that the person that was making that stupid comment will get into the situation where they can't afford it.
Yeah, it's relative.
It's relative.
Alex, so to wrap it up, where do you see Miami? Where would you like to see Miami in 2035?
I think Miami is going to keep growing, and where I want to see it, it's that it's beneficial, that the growth is beneficial for everyone, that everybody can make a living here, that we allocate the funds where they're supposed to be. We get a group of people that work and together of making it to become affordable for everybody, And that's not socialism, that's just what an economy of a city needs, So Miami will continue growing. Anybody that says it won't, it will, but just hopefully in the right direction,
Yeah, economy just can't have people at the top. It's got to have a rounder circle of people to make it work, Got to have your workforce. Dubai does it.
Yeah. A lot of people are going to say now they slave their labor and this and that, and it's a different scenario.
I don't know. I've been there, and I didn't see that, because I actually went to the area of Dubai where a lot of the workers live, which is called Old Dubai. It's a city right outside Old Dubai, and they have a very nice... It's old Dubai. It was the original Dubai, and then they built a new Dubai next to it, And
like
that's where the workforce lives. And they live great. They have money. They were happy. They were good.
Like Monaco. I mean, it's a different thing, Dubai and stuff, because they pay for it completely. Monaco, some of the companies even pay for it outside of Monaco. But that's the point. They know that if they don't have workforce, they cannot function.
You need it. You need it. You got to have consideration for your workforce. And that's why I think that we kind of lost the thing here. Like, there's people that got to work and live here and they can't afford it, I had a nail salon once, and it was so hard for me to get people to work because they lived so far from the nail salon. It was tough. The commute wasn't worth it for them to come. It was hard.
Or when you have let's go there. If you have a nail salon, and if you want to get your nails done as a woman, if your appointment out of sudden is now 3 weeks away because they don't have enough, how do you call them, nail techs. Nail techs. So if they don't have them, and you have to wait 3 weeks to get your nails done because there's not enough anymore, those are the consequences. And that's, people got to dumb it down, understand what it means when you tell everybody to leave. And then if you need a plumber because, your toilet is clogged and the plumber tells you, I come in a week from now and charges you $500 from that, then you wonder why, you know? So let's not get there. Tell people to stay. Let's help them to stay. You know, let's be a city. Let's be a unity. Let's be a community. Let's give a helping hand to everybody. And let's stop this. We are better than you, or I'm better than this, or better than that. That doesn't help anybody. You know, energy is everything.
Gotta have consideration for everybody, because even though this is an entrepreneur podcast and we reach out and we communicate with, we have a lot of people also that want to just work and have a happy life.
Yes.
You know, and we want, and they help us along the way, and they feel ownership because they feel part of whatever you're building around them. But they got to be able to live too. You know, it's, you know, they have to be able to survive. They just want to be happy. You know, they don't want to have aspirations of being an entrepreneur, but they do want to work. They want to make their income. They want to have their families, and they want to do their thing. So we have to have consideration for those people too, because it can't just be, oh, crazy rents, crazy this, everything is expensive, and then.
And we have a lot of good entrepreneurs here in the city. You know,
awesome
we have
ones.
a lot of awesome guys here that really didn't come here to take advantage of the city, that really invest into the city, that really see these problems as well, you know.
They feel it. As an entrepreneur, you feel it, because you don't want to have your staff unhappy.
Yes.
You know, and you don't want to have to pay them crazy money where the business doesn't flourish either, because that's the part that people forget. When you have to pay your employees more. Yeah, just pay more.
Pay more, but then...
How does the business survive?
How do I survive?
Right.
You know, my rent is out of control.
Yeah.
You know, I treat my employees very well. They're with me for years now, you know, because I treat them very, very well. But even me, I had to cut down on things with them because, not on their pay, but before, as a little burger shop, I was paying their vacations always, you know. Sick days, they get paid, you know. I have given, you know, employees maternal leave, and I have helped out financially. I've done so much for them. Me and my wife, we're very much about how can we make our employees happy employee, happy guest.
Yeah.
But
you want to take care of your people.
Of course, you have to. You know, that makes your business better, because if you want to be out of the business, you need somebody to be in the business that takes care just as much as you do.
Yes.
So you need to compensate them for them. But if everything gets so crazy with the rents and stuff, you know, every entrepreneur also gets squished to a certain level in certain levels of entrepreneurship, you know?
Thank you, Alex, man. You were great.
Thank you.
Super happy you came. I told you we were going to be able to talk on it without getting specific on anything. You know, we did a lot of good background there, and we got your overall opinion of everything that you know you believe in. And I can't wait for people to follow your Instagram and get educated. Hopefully, we all can come together and, you know, get more things done.